saying it's just met with what I'm saying is it's just met with a lot of resistance. And it's like,
right. Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're wrong.
yeah,
I'm agreeing with you. I'm offering insight and whatnot, but at no point am I trying to make it sound like you're wrong, especially not for feeling what you're feeling. I mean, those are the reactions you're having to whatever fears or concerns you have, and I kind of see it as like those are the cards that you're dealt. So it's like I'm just.
And that's like the cool thing about like being the extroverted perceiver. So it's that inferior. I don't know if it's inferior NI or SI, but they're both trying to find some sort of identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. It's like, yeah, like cool. I keep doing this interesting shit and making these awesome experiences, and fucking yeah, I'm just going against the grain with all of it, and I don't know if it's what it means to me or basically that's what it's all. It's all the freaking. It's integrated, so it's all pertaining to me. So it's like, yeah, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
What is this?
I'm not sure per se, but if you have an inferior introverted perception, if you're looking for meaning, that sounds more like NI. When I talk to the ENTPs, they don't seem as particularly concerned with finding meaning. It's like they're looking for shit to settle.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could you provide insight on that, Audra? Settle? Like something, I mean, it's kind of like harmonized, but it's not necessarily like an ideological or even like idea-based harmonizing or like settling. It's not like, the pieces have aligned. It's like, I understand now. It's more like, I don't even, it's difficult for me to understand because I don't understand SI well enough, but it's different. Like Zach Mills, he was talking about like he's gone around and done some shit, gone different places, but he's really just like he's really just looking to like he didn't use the term settle down, but the way he described like SI seeking is like you get people who put up a lot of fight, but then really they're just hungry. They just want to eat some food.
Like I see that in some people, but I don't relate to that.
Oh, okay. So,
because I've tried sort of, being comfortable and it's not actually enough.
Mm-hmm.
I know some ENTPs seem to be able to settle down. I don't.
It may be, and again, I'm not certain because I'm just mixing shit together like an alchemist, hoping it doesn't blow up. But it may be that I'm confusing. Like for Kodo, it seems like he has inferior NI, but I may be confusing that for those SP concerns that I was talking about. Because if it's like questions pertaining to the self and whatnot, and like what's good for me, how do I develop, what do I care about, just different stuff like that, that may sort of come off as like meaning seeking.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think how I would frame kind of my own thoughts on the matter. I guess it would be almost like in the moment. I mean, fulfillment isn't really the right word, but it's like not boredom would be a better way to put it. Like finding something that is not boring me. That's in the moment at least kind of entertaining. It's more than entertaining, but it's taking my attention up in a good way. Like it's. But then I've also realized that things don't. For me, at least, I don't think anything will ever do that permanently. So, at least my kind of way is that looking for a final solution is folly. Mm-hmm. For any, because it will, it doesn't settle in. You're like,
does it make more sense to frame it as like not like how you said, but like a sort of optimal position more so? Like,
I mean, the closest thing that I can get to like a final solution would be a position in which there is no definition, only the ability to move on different possibilities as they suit me. But it's still a state of movement. It's just a position in which more movements are possible and less things have to be given up in order to move.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what I was trying to say with SI seeking. However, fucking role function. It's got this weird way of like, you're like, this is what it is. And then somebody who actually values it is like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I keep coming around to the idea of movement, and that's what it always ends up, because as soon as I feel like I'm not moving,
Uh-huh.
for lack of a better term, it's like I start going crazy, and I start getting extremely irrational. It's just like losing it.
That's how I feel. It's
and it drives me nuts. And I'm that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I've settled down because I've made plans to make a irrational, huge move and change in the next few months. So I'm feeling better.
Where are you going?
I'm going to quit my job and go back to more self-employment, work on some books, work on some other projects. Got some other side jobs I can probably do to make money, but
Hustling.
ditching the whole like day job because it's going to kill me.
Uh-huh. Right.
It was what I needed for a couple of years, but now it's not. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Because what Kata's talking about is like really there right now, because it's like all the things that people say you should want and you should be after and you should get, like, as far as, you know, job, like.
I don't use this phrase. Yeah. I don't use this phrase often to describe, you know, just I don't use it as a generality, if that's even a word, or generalization. But I mean, what other people say is what you got to do is horseshit. Like,
and I know it, but there's still, it's so forceful because it's so much there that it's still kind of. Whereas, like, you know it, but it's still wearing on you. It's
like the path of least it's like the path of least resistance. It's like, well, I mean, this is the way the river's flowing. Just come on in.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, so I know it again. So it's like, I think, Audrey, I'm glad you said that, because that's kind of what I've been trying to say subconsciously. But it's like, okay, I know you can always tell me. I live by that quote, like, yeah, fuck everybody, like, find what your own purpose. But it's like, when you're looking at it objectively, it's like, yeah, I could, but especially when you're a thinker and you see how the world works, it's like, I could, but my chances are so low. And not only my
right.
And it's like, it's not only am I going to meet resistance, it's even when I get there, let's say I do get there, it's still going to be resistance. It's still going to always be a painful process. And
yeah. And you see the advantages of the path of least resistance, and there are some nice perks.
And like, and another thing I know Audrey can feel me with is it's easy. Like, I know Audrey's good at fucking doing it. I'm good at fucking getting good at it. Like, I'm working 2 jobs now, and it's not hard at all. And it's like, yeah, it's not hard. It's just, you're taking all my time away.
Yeah, you're taking all the time. You're like, it's easy. I get to go out and eat. I get to buy goofy stuff. It's comfortable. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm like, it's comfortable. It's easy. And like, what am I?
It's
like,
killing me.
But it's killing me.
Yeah,
somebody asked me the other day, like, oh, you're working up there still, and they're like, you could retire there, couldn't you? And I was like,
oh,
I want to strangle you. You're like, yes, thank you for saying that, because it reminded me how, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for telling me I could spend 30 years working the same place.
Yeah, just that thought. Like, Annie went crazy, and it's like 20 years of sitting here, and you're like, death. You're like, just kill me now.
Yeah,
it'd be cushy. It just would be soul crushing.
It's just weird because it's like I don't fit in with the liberal or the conservative, because it's like, I'm not a dumbass. I understand that it's right. Yeah. I know that I can't just live my life as a special snowflake and be a hippie and blah, 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 and it'll be okay. But it's just I can't be completely conservative either because it's like, where the fuck is the fun in that? That's not living. So,
Well, the other side, one of the things I've thought about is I've tried to contemplate the actual like potential bad consequences, and I realized that there's really not that bad. There's
yeah,
what's the worst that could happen? You're like you go out on a big exciting like adventure, you know, high risk, high reward, fun, exciting. Worst that could happen is you fail and you have to go do something easy for a while. You know,
yeah.
launch the next one. Like there's really not that. It's not a there's. Because there's also that, you know, there's all these like stories and people. Again, it's that force of conventional wisdom or whatever telling you, oh, failure and badness, and you're like, it's a load of crap. You're like, get out of whatever.
There is no failure. The only failure is social failure, and that's fabricated.
Exactly.
So yeah,
You know, it's like you think about the ability to improvise in every other situation you've ever been in, you've been able to get out of. Why would any other situation in the future? Why should you be scared of any situation?
yeah, and it's completely contradictory because it's like, oh yeah, no, play it safe, but and that's what they incentivize, right? But that's what they say is the incentive. But the real incentive is they want you to go out and be a hero because in any story, you know, going to Jungian theory, what's the greatest archetype in human history? It's the hero who goes into the unknown, comes back, does what everybody said he couldn't do. You can't fucking do it. Oh, no, it's impossible. Comes back, does it. And everybody's like, oh, shit, he did it. And then
somebody's got to do it. That's the other thing. They're like, well, most people aren't suited to it. You know what? Somebody's got to do it. Might as well be me.
Yeah.
Might as well be.
So it's like even that's contradictory. That's not even the truth. You guys do want a freaking hero. You just aren't. You're just too scared to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to confirm your fear. So if I do fail, you can say, "Oh, I told you so," and then you can like feel better about yourself, saying, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't do it because he failed." I was.
But the thing is, when you take a risk, everybody around you is going to be. They're going to be like, "I wish I could do that." Like they'll tell you, they're like, "You can't do that," but when you do it, they're all jealous.
Yeah. Yes, that's basically what I was getting at with the whole, like, you know, before Liz got all mad and stuff saying I was bashing girls. It's not that. It's just like, I'm just saying in general,
Oh, there's some weird freaking social stuff out there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just in general, I feel like, yeah.
I'm like,
I know you're freaking not like, you're like me too, Audrey. You're not freaking down with everything. Like, it's just like, everyone's telling me I should be happy because I have a girlfriend and because I have, you know, stable money and whatnot. And it's like, no. I don't feel like it. And, you know, and then I bring it up. I'm just like, I'm just kind of, I feel like there might be more to this. I just feel like I kind of don't want to be in a relationship, or I don't think that would make me happy, that one person is enough to make me feel completely content with life. And they're like, oh, what? What are you, what? Oh, you saying, oh, you must be a dog.
Yeah.
What are you? You just haven't found the right girl yet. And it's like, no, dude, I don't think you understand. Like, cognitively speaking, in my brain, I don't think I can be happy just finding a girl and living a happy life in a comfortable home.
I know. Well, I've contemplated that. I just watching people do it. And I'm like, it's interesting and it's amazing, but I don't on a personal level get it. Because I've had people doing the, you know, basically the same thing most of my life. Like, hey, get you, you know, find you a dude, and you know why don't you? Like I remember used to explaining to like when I was technically in high school and stuff, and people were always trying to say, they're like, well, what else are you going to do? That was always my favorite. Like, well, aren't you bored? Like, what is it? Like, no. I'm like, I got this to do and that to do and that, and they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, yeah, but you guys are boring, so I don't have time. Whatever.
Why
it
haven't
is.
you been building dick catchers? That's what you're supposed to be doing.
I mean, it's like, I've been dealing with that my whole life. And then people always, it's interesting. People will, despite having contradicted that expectation my entire life, people that have known me my entire life will instantaneously, if they like I was out eating lunch with my cousin one time, and I remember, and suddenly people assumed I had a, you know, boyfriend. They're like, oh, you finally like reverted. You finally, like it's happened multiple times. That's an example. But it's like, how long have you guys known me? Like, really?
Yeah.
But people do that. They're just sitting there waiting. Like they don't even realize it. But they're just like.
And I don't find people aren't happy. They aren't.
No, they're not happy.
My parents aren't happy. Like they don't want and they're one of the rare people who don't want to break up, and they did make it work.
Yeah.
But they're still
I
freaking
know
happy.
lots of people that are like both of my sets of my grandparents were just like, it was amazing to watch because they did seem to be like have it all, whatever. Like, you know, I was like, that's really cool, but I don't get it.
That's really cool. I don't get it, but it's also just, and I think it's another generational thing. I haven't seen anyone of my friends, because people in the military they do it super early because there's incentives like money and free houses and shit. And
Right.
all of them are happy. All of them. Like, I've freaking been in 3.5 years. I've had like 4 maybe buddies. 3 of them already divorced. One of them has a kid and he's with his wife, but he's not happy. He bitches about it all the time. He's just there because he has a daughter now. Like, what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
I got so many friends that are that way too. And you're like, well, I lost all those friends because they're all married
yeah.
and boring.
Yeah.
And most of the time, most of my friends have always been in like their mid-30s because they had already gotten over all of that and their kids were old enough and they had finally gotten around to like being a real person again and could do fun things, kind of.
Yeah, you have to wait for the kids to like grow up a little bit. And
Yeah, seriously, you got to wait around until, some of them have gotten divorced and run around, and that actually messes with things too. One of my best friends ended up moving because he got divorced and he wanted to be closer to his kids. And like, that messed me up. You're like, really? But yeah, it's always crazy stuff like that. You're like, okay.
so
Yeah, I
many
I feel like an internal need to like find out sort of what makes me tick, find out what actually makes me happy, and then as far as kids go, spend the rest of the time just being the cool uncle archetype rather than like, let me spawn some of my own.
Uncle was like a possible role in any like familial situation. Like, who wouldn't want to be the cool uncle?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. It's like all the fun of being able to be around the kids, but being able to leave and not have all the responsibility of taking care of them.
Well, no, it's the best of all worlds because you're able to contribute positively. You're being able to be like, hey, look at all these other possibilities. Look at these other ways of seeing things.
Let me show you what household items, are good for explosions, how to make things, fun stuff like that, right? And then you send them home to their parents, and they can cause a little chaos. Like, yeah.
I feel like any nieces and nephews of Audra could potentially nickname her Aunt Cookbook. Like, why are you calling her Aunt Cookbook? Oh, yeah, like the anarchist cookbook.
Down with that?
That's dope. But yeah, I figured out. I thought I was like, because I used to always say like, yeah, I don't really care if I get a wife. I always want a kid. And what I realized is, what I meant by that is, I guess I don't want a kid. What I want is to like mentor like a young like person.
Yeah.
So then like I came to a realization. I was like, I don't want kids. I just want like, once I'm successful enough to just like adopt a kid or like do some kind of program where it's like I take a teenager or like a middle school kid. I'm like, yep, time to do some cool shit. Fuck what everybody says.
Right.
I got money.
I want to play with them, not actually take care of them.
Yeah. I got fuck you money and I'm kind of smart. Want to do some cool shit?
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to freaking like, I don't know.
But I think there's already so many fucking people that exist, and not enough of them know what the fuck's going on. So it's like, okay, as a culture, we need to invest more in mentorship than we do.
Yeah.
Fucking.
No, I completely fucking agree with that, dude.
It's one of those things. Like, I've actually done a lot of that.
The internet
It's a lot of
mentor all our
fun.
children.
It's like if enough of us become mentors, we might actually be able to undo the effects of the schooling system.
Yeah.
Or we go
Yeah.
totally the other way and just let all the kids like, get mentored by like 4chan and message boards and
Yeah, that happened to me, and I'm still unraveling all that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. I was just thinking. So, like, my Taekwondo instructor is married and whatever, but he's never had kids. He just has students, and he's had thousands of students over the years, and has undoubtedly been a positive influence on all of them. And I was always like, that's a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've already done the same thing. Like, I have kids that I taught years ago, and then I see them in town, and they're all grown up, and you're like, it's kind of interesting. Like,
You're like, there they go, my little rascals.
no, usually I don't know who they are, and they come up to me and they go, Miss Brown, and I go, I know where I know you from. Like, you're my students. Yeah, you're like, it's like, but I mean, it is like that's interesting to talk about because.
All right. Keep this conversation going. I'm going to go black in my lungs. Be back in a second.
Ooh.
And just like that, I think he's an ENTP again.
So Ken, fuck your friend for those dreams last night. Holy shit.
What do you have dreams about?
So many fucking stressful things. I can't even remember it all. I just have this memory of constant stress. I also dreamed that I got like hacked.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why, but I don't know. There was just a lot of energy there.
Well, yeah. So, Audra, I don't know if you're still there. You mean okay?
I'm still here.
To give a little bit of context, I was talking to one of my friends on Skype, and I was like, I kind of want a third person in the conversation. I was like, I think I'll bring Zach in, and came in and was talking to my friend, and things were, they were going pretty well, and I was actually got more quiet and let them talk for a while, and I was like I was sitting there after a while, and I was like, this is one of my favorite things. I'd love to have like two people I know, and I'm like, okay, this person's like that, and then this person's like this, and I stick them together, and they interact, and it's like, oh, they're having fun. I was like, I feel like I'm playing Animal Crossing. Like, it's like I get to move people around and be like, oh, they get, because I don't know, I feel like it gives me more insight than when it's me talking to somebody, because I feel like I have the issue of being sometimes, not always, but sometimes so agreeable with people that it's like I don't push people's buttons. Like some of my friends can push people's buttons. So if I stick some of my friends with other people, I get to more objectively see, okay, what triggers this person? What,
Well, Ken found out that sociopaths trigger Zach.
Yeah. You were doing pretty good in the conversation until he went, until he started talking about his medical expertise and dispatching human beings.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it started off. It's like, oh, he used to work dispatch. It wasn't what you thought.
Yeah, he was talking about stuff like that and whatnot. But no, my friend's sort of like he like reads straight out of the description from the mock MBTI personalities list for the ISTP. It's like the ISTP was wishes there was a war where he could kill people that had more feelings than him, and good reflexes help him dodge responsibility.
That's funny.
He got hired. There was some sort of government-related job where he got hired to work on on an airport,
Mm-hmm.
and he decided to reallocate the time spent to more important activities, like telling coworkers to fuck off. And it was like that. That was pretty much his time spent there. I think he actually got told by like a manager, like some higher up, that basically you need to stop making a fool out of your supervisor. Like, don't do that. And he was like, but why?
But why?
Yeah.
That's funny. It just made me think of, nurses have the best stories. EMTs.
Yeah. He was, of course, he's chuckling the entire time because his feeling functions are somewhere in the closet. Like they're just somewhere down there, and he's chuckling like the Pillsbury Doughboys. He's telling Zach about the story of this dude who was trying to fake suicide as a cry for help, but then ended up, accidentally actually, he purposely shot himself, but then accidentally severed a femoral artery and bled out and actually died. But he's
Who
just
knew
like,
a 22 could sever an important artery?
yeah, and so he's just chuckling to himself. And Zach, his eyes just keep getting wider.
Well, and then he started telling the story about he's like his favorite calls are the ones where people actually succeed in killing themselves in a clean kill and they just blow out the back of their brains. And I was like, ooh, okay.
He's like, there's no back of the head.
Yup.
I'm just sitting there eating it up because I've known the dude for a decade, and he's probably contributed to part of my weirdness.
I was just gonna say, like, some of the best stories, like, I remember because I worked with a bunch of nurses for a while, and they'd start telling these crazy stories, and they'd look, they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, keep going. This is great material." I'm like, "Keep going. This is interesting." And then like cops and like I know all kinds of people. That, yeah.
Well, the thing
Like,
that bothered me wasn't the
I can take it
story.
clinically. And, yeah, it's like I realize they're not used to people being able.
It wasn't the story. I've seen some dark shit. You know, it was just more like his demeanor while telling the story. I was like, oh shit, how much should I reveal to this man?
Might be serious.
Yeah, it seems like because I brought Zach in too because I was like, I'm trying to get a feel for what his type is because it's like I feel like I'm too close to him to really figure it out unless I add in some, you know, catalytic element to bring forth, you know. It really is. People are just chemicals. You just have them interact with each other, and I'm like, when you put these two together, you get this reaction.
Did you say your friend was an ISTP or an ESTP?
I think he's an ISTP. I thought about ESTP, but as I said, that like it seems like he values FE, but he uses it as like in a more emotionally disturbing way. Like, but as I said, like a good portion of the sort of macabre things that I mentioned, just sort of as jokes, have been custom tailored to be suited for him.
Right. But your delivery comes off as a lot less American.
Well, for him, it's not. Well, yeah, because mine is more jovial, like see the funny joke, and for him, he doesn't give a shit if somebody else thinks it's funny. He thinks it's funny, and if somebody else seems creeped out, he just laughs harder.
Yeah.
Funnier.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. That's what I was saying. Is it seemed like super id FE going on, where it's either tertiary or inferior, where it's like, you know, just some sort of positioning where. What the fuck was I going to say? It's like, just positioning of it. It's like, oh, this is causing a problem. Even better.
Yeah.
Go with, you know, definitely could be tertiary because I totally relate to that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like tertiary FE is like, oh, I didn't mean to offend you, but now that you're offended.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
There's nothing funnier than finding somebody's FI or whatever it is to poke. And then they start reacting to it and you're just like,
I don't think
it's like good hot salsa, you just can't stop.
I actually kind of feel like FI polars actually take FI a bit more seriously. I don't think it's FI so much. I think it's more FE noticing that, like, because FE is the thing that's tracking whether or not somebody's happy or they're sad. So when you notice a demonstrable change, then you're like, ooh, I like changes. I like situations. I'd like to play with this more. So it's actually more of a, I feel like when you do tap into FI, you're taking it a bit more seriously. But yeah,
we don't. Like, yeah, no. What I've actually been thinking about the other thing. I think what it is that we have some, but we don't externalize it hardly at all. Like it's extremely
in there.
Like it's in there, but it almost never like does any. It doesn't tie to very many outside things.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. But yeah,
FI's like, I mean, I might feel something particularly about this, and then FE's like, but I'm more fun.
Everyone's like, it's like, well, we could feel about this, and you're like, eh. Usually FI and SI are like, we could be. And they're like, nah. They have to ask permission. Guy in here like, no, let's not. But yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure about ESTP or not, but he struck me more as.
Did we decide on anything when we were in there? I totally forgot.
brought up possibly like we had considered STP, STJ, and NTJ.
Serious to me.
Yeah.
Most of the ISTPs I know can be fun, but they tend to be a little more serious.
Seems like they put a bit more of the weight on the FE, whereas I feel like he gets a lot of gratification, but then also like maybe relaxation is somewhat a word that could be used, but it's like there's some sort of comfort with the fact that he can piss people off, but then I'm much more difficult to piss off. Like I don't think I've really ever blown up at him for stuff. I mean, I do some like it was more so when we were younger. Like he actually kind of pissed me off when we were younger because we'd play video games and he'd just shit on me repeatedly. And, he'd like poke fun at me or just generally be better at the game than I was. But I don't know. I mean, like candy.
Slowly wore you down, Stockholm syndrome, and now here you are.
See, I almost feel like it's
kidding.
kind of funny because I almost feel like it's the opposite. It's like
You wore him down.
then it's like he keeps poking fun, and then he's like, this person keeps coming around. What the fuck is wrong with them?
I mean, I'm just thinking of like ESTs I know, like myself. Like that's literally how she introduces herself. Like if she speaks words, she doesn't even have to know anybody. Like it's pointed, and she immediately starts making fun of people.
Uh-huh.
And then if people keep coming around, like she's like, all I'm doing is being terrible to people. Like, why do they keep coming back? She's always like,
Yeah.
don't just.
Which is actually kind of funny because I'm in some ways I'm kind of a shitty friend because it's like I don't often reciprocate to people. Like they'll be like, hey, and they'll be like one to talk to me. I'm like, oh god, I have to start a conversation with another person. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to another conversation with the person. I'm trying to think about shit going on with me. And so it's like, and people like text me and stuff. And I'm like, and I'm just sort of like not reading it. But it's funny because like over the years, like I've done that more so, but he's actually been the one that's initiated me. Like, what are you doing? What are you up to? What's going on?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of terrified in a way because if he is an ESTP, I'm like I totally could see how like with a female that would work with me, but at the same time I'd be fucking not particularly thrilled for at least part of that relationship. Because it'd be basically me just like having to get over the fact that I'm triggered on a consistent basis.
So
It'd probably be me like, no, it's
stop, then they would probably stop. But yeah, if you continue to be reactive, it will never stop.
I'd probably start crying and then throw something, and they'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" I'd be like, "No, it's cool. It's just I'm gonna be upset for a while because you really hurt me, but we'll be fine. It'll be okay."
Probably that's like the closest thing you can kind of trigger. And then they're like, "I don't understand. What did I do? I don't understand."
That's really the thing. Is I feel like if I were to get hurt and then they were to show even any I don't know, maybe concern might be nice, but I feel like a lot of people show concern and I don't respond to that as well as like if sorry, I'm going to backpedal here. Somebody, I can't remember, it may have been Zach, but somebody said INFJs are like the most likely to end up in relationships with psychopaths.
That wasn't me, it was somebody else. Yeah.
Somebody else must have said that, but it was like, I was like, I can totally see that. Because it's like, I feel like I would actually respond to somebody. They wouldn't even necessarily have to be like, oh, I'm so sorry or something like that. But if they seemed visibly hurt by the fact, or maybe like visibly like bothered that they had like offended me in some way, like even if they didn't understand it, if it like gave them pause and they were like, wait, what? Like that might be enough for me to then sort of get out of my own head and be like, just sort of like try to explain it or like try to calm the situation.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a lot of the ESTPs I know, like they don't show it and they don't care about offending people, but they actually do care about people, if that makes any sense. Like they care about people, but they don't care about offending people.
Right. And I'm kind of like, I'm actually, no, I'm really
internally with them. They're like, I don't get it. They're like, I care about people, but I have no idea how to like deal with that.
I actually respond to that. I think, quite well. Like that idea, because it's like, yeah, like I almost feel like that's more important. Because like if you can go through processes where you're like bringing up the more vital energy of someone, where you're actually tapping into like being, you know, set against someone in a way where it's like you're causing a reaction like that. It's like if you can bring that up, but then like as you're saying, like they care about people. If there's like this other layer that either transcends or is like deeper than just surface level interaction, I think that's more important.
Yeah, well, like I said, I would almost say that, I mean, just in my experience, I would almost say that people matter more in some ways to like ESTPs than ENTPs, because ESTPs, it's like that SE, it's that reality thing. Like there's an importance there with with reality, and so they're like, I want, they see people as actual people. More than,
whereas intuitives are just like they see people and they're like, oh, that's a funny idea.
Basically. Like, I'm just spitting, but I see that more. Yeah, I mean, there's a more. They're both constantly poking people, but ENTPs are doing it for basically probing people. I don't know. It's different though. Like I see it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, ENTPs, it's people are important, but more is what they can do rather than what they are. That's the difference right there.
So hold on, can you explain that?
So like,
or like
you know,
repeat
like,
it maybe.
yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, so like with an ESTP, it's the people for what they are. It's as is. It's in the moment, right? It's about the reality, and with an ENTP, or at least the way I see it, it's more about, as with everything, it's, you don't see people as much for what they are as what they could be or what they could do, or it's the other. So it ends up, you know, caring about people more about what they can do rather than just what is or what
they are in this interaction. Or whatever.
They're not like taking people, you know, it's like, yeah, like people aren't as often important for just like being existing versus, you know, what we see as some sort of potential or something.
So the friend I think might
People aren't after minions quite as much, I don't think.
So the friend who I think might be ESTP, this is the last message he sent to me via text. Kill yourself.
Jesus.
I'm like, oh.
Oh god.
I think when Taylor says he was raised by ENTPs, I think I just had an ESTP friend that sort of FI puller sort of broke me in.
Broke you in, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of like my sister texting people, and it's just constant. Like, it begins with insults and just continues to insult. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're on here and she's on here. She's quite attractive and things, and so, you know,
I'd probably just get real sweaty and awkward around her.
They like, you know, get her number, and she'll be out. She's like, I don't care, and then they start texting her, and she basically just starts insulting them from the get go. And it's pretty funny to watch.
So
in person or via text.
By observing me interact with him, Ken, did you learn anything about your friend or me that you didn't know otherwise?
Yeah, you can get triggered by stuff, and like my trigger, like, I mean, your triggering didn't seem too bad, but I notice around him, my triggering's more for show. It's like, oh no, I don't want to, like if he shows me something that he thinks is offensive, and I'm like, oh god, I don't want to see that, then he just laughs harder.
Right. I mean,
so it's like him showing the videos of people like trying to do leg presses, locking their knees, and then their knees just sort of going in the wrong direction. I'm like, oh, that makes me physically uncomfortable, but he's just chuckling. And then Zach's like, oh god. The difference is Zach, I think, was more like, I don't know if I want to come back. Whereas me, I'm like, okay, see you next week.
Yeah.
I think really, as far as like FI polar goes, probably more so with ESTPs. I think the idea about like actually being in a relationship with one, because I bring it back to relationship because I'm a fucking hopeless romantic anyway. But I think what sort of scares me is that probably at some point they are going to make me cry, and I don't know how I feel about expressing that around another person, because I normally I'm like a dog trying to hide its shit. It's like I just sort of like go into a back room somewhere where it's like nobody can find me.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can say "oh" if you want. I don't think I need it, but
I only say that because I kind of do that too.
mhm.
I'm just gonna laugh.
Yeah, this is introvert stuff, Audra. I just
Nah, I mean, one time, I was trying to talk with Taylor, and I was trying to understand something from like TI, but like I was getting the fact that even though I didn't understand, I was getting the fact that like socially, like based on some level, I wasn't really getting that. It's like I was somehow at a disadvantage, or like I was losing in some sort of social sphere or whatnot. Like as Taylor was like, berating me.
as he does.
But it's like I was trying to understand, and the fact that like I felt sort of emotionally compromised at that point, but then it was coupled with the fact that in a TI way, like I didn't understand, like I felt incompetent, and then like he further, like I was like, I don't know what to do, or I don't understand, and he further pushed, and it was like, well, now you cry, like that's totally what he was expecting, and it wasn't like and it's okay sort of thing. It was more like he was getting enjoyment out of it, which then at that point I totally was not getting any enjoyment out of it, and I just had to leave.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes. More so when I was like in high school and stuff, in middle school. But it wasn't like the TI thing, right? It would be from some other like function, right?
Right.
It would be like
I have
sensing thing.
I have issues when it comes to feeling incompetent. Like if I don't understand something, it's like there's some sort of imperative that my body goes through where it's like somehow it's vital to me being able to survive that I understand what's going on.
Well, it is, right?
I mean,
if you don't know what's going on, how are you gonna?
In that scenario, and quite frankly, I'm getting more and more surprised by how much I'm able to survive without knowing what the fuck's happening.
That's not so true.
So in a way, it's kind of more of an ego thing, but yeah, that was one of those instances where I was noticing his FE desire to kick shit up was overriding any sort of TI offerings he could give me. 'Cause in that moment, I was more so like, "Can you explain it to me?" And he's like, "No, cry."
So you can answer this if you want, Ken. But when you were like in middle school or like elementary school and stuff, did you have like lots of negative experiences with like the groupthink?
Group thing.
Like did you find that people would gang up on you like in kind of like social scenarios and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I experienced that too. Like, I wonder if it has more to do with that than typing. You know what I mean? Like it.
Yeah.
Because like that happened to me a lot, and for me it was always like some social awareness thing that I wasn't fully, because I was always coming at it from like a TI perspective, right?
Mm.
And then there'd be some like sensing thing or like some like social hierarchy thing that I didn't understand or like something like that. And that was like the source of like when I would feel that way when I was younger. But
yeah, I used to get blamed for saying things that I never said. Happened at least twice.
That would happen to me too.
Happened at least twice. Actually, it was really 2 times that I remember that occurring. And both instances, I was quoting movies where,
Really?
yeah. And here's how stupid it was. I was quoting movies, and I was sort of muttering the lines under my breath. Because even back then, I was playing around with, FE Creative, trying to think about demonstrating or acting different things. But I was like saying movie lines under my breath based on associations I had with whatever was going on, and somebody would mishear me, and then say that I said a word that most of the time I wasn't even aware was a bad word. It's the first time it was fucking. I remember this, and I'm taking it down a little SI trip here, but it was a fucking quote from the Bionicle movie. Okay.
Okay.
That shit. Okay. I was holding this thing that we were cutting out of cardboard paper. I was like, oh, it kind of looks like a claw, and it reminded me of this one character. And then I said the word shattered because I remember that character said it in a pretty cool way. So I muttered it under my breath, and some kid was like, he just said shit. And everyone in the room is like, yeah, I heard it.
Yeah.
And I was so embarrassed by the fact that I was quoting something under my breath, and I didn't think they would understand. So when they were asking me, what did you actually say? I was just sort of stuttering. Because I was embarrassed. Yeah. It's so I thought they would think I was I was already in a shitty situation. I just figured they would think I was weirder,
right,
if I copped to it. So basically, yeah, I got in trouble for that instance. And the other time I was quoting something from The Sandlot. I think they were talking about the shoe. And the phrase was Big Chief. It was either that or cigarettes, the brand or whatever it was. And somebody was like, he just said bitchy. So it happened again. And then again, people were like, heard it. I was like, you didn't hear it. Nothing.
It's funny how these things that seem so stupid as an adult, right, that have such an impact and are burned so strongly into your
well early on it
it makes a big difference. Yeah,
it was the sort of burgeonings of me being sort of antisocial in some ways. I'm not saying I'm really antisocial. It's I like hanging out. I like hanging out with people, but I'm really don't like group mentalities.
Yeah, and the thing for me is that I always assumed so. I grew up around a bunch of deaf and hard of hearing kids,
mm-hmm.
right? And the thing about deaf people is that there's already this barrier to communication, So
mm-hmm.
they very much wear their emotions on their sleeves, and they're very straightforward,
Yeah.
I remember there was this one chick that was, she was just pretty overweight, and
Yeah.
some deaf person came up to her and basically signed to her are you pregnant or just fat? and that was acceptable, right? And then so when I went into school, I could tell how people were feeling and stuff, and I assumed that people just that was just obvious, right?
Uh-huh.
And that you were supposed to comment on it and just treat it as a matter of fact kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously that's not how people are, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of my was just the social unawareness from that point of view, and then kids being kids, obviously they gang up on you and do stuff to get you in trouble and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I don't know. I have similar feelings in that regard.
Is that Kodo down there?
Yeah, goddamn boy, I tell you
Yeah, goddamn boy, goddamn Kodo, man.
what. Goddamn nigga. What's good with you? What's good with you, nigga?
Still thinking about that fucking thing. Yeah, nigga. Yeah.
Yeah, nigga. Yeah, nigga. Me and my niggas.
So, are you totally turned off by me and Zach talking about our feelings, Audra? Is it totally just not interesting?
What?
I'm getting pretty feely in here more than you.
I probably zoned out. I was,
Audra's just nope.
I was contemplating. I was wondering why people cry when situations where people have cried.
Yeah.
It's what is that crying?
Well, I was debated people that I fought and then they cried, and then I gave them really my solution is always after the fight I always give them all this important technical advice, and I'm I wonder if that thinking about personality that probably doesn't work.
No.
So I was yeah, I beat you and you're crying, but this is what you did wrong, and this is how you can not lose next time, right? This is what you need to go home and work on.
I'm not good at crying. Like in,
Yeah, I
in
know you're-
social situations, I usually cry. Like it's usually when like I'm by myself overthinking.
I was gonna say it's overthinking plus anger, and just like
But then like when I'm in a social situation where it's kind of like sad, sometimes like I'm kind of fucked because I like find the irony in it or the humor. And like I'll be like the one guy who like laughs inappropriately or something. Like everybody else.
yeah.
I find myself doing that a fuck ton.
I find that my attention span is not nearly long enough for most sad rituals, and therefore I can be
I find myself crying the most
for
often.
a few minutes, and then it's like, okay, I'm bored now. And so I
Yeah.
start counting ceiling tiles and whatever I can do to like,
Bored of crying.
no, I can't even cry, but I can be like, okay, taking this seriously, and then like, all right, now what?
Yeah.
I think that's funny because it's like even before I knew anything about Myers-Briggs, I knew that feelings and emotions were important to me in some way. So it's like I would actually get mad at myself or sort of feel sad because in sad situations, like a person dying or a funeral, like
Leaving.
I felt sort of empty. Like,
Oh yeah, that isn't that cool though. Like I mean that like yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, isn't it weird how that is?
people are like, sitting there like crying and whatnot. I'm like, oh, is that SI? Like looking back, not at the time when I was like at a funeral, because as I said, I didn't really know about it. But it's like looking back, people were like crying and stuff, and then like they will be missed. I'm like that they're already gone.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I definitely feel something, but it's more of a like a introspective thing. It's like, oh wow, this person's fucking gone. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like a real intimate thing. It's very intimate, but it's like I don't fucking just like, oh god.
Yeah, I feel like
Where-
that more outward portion. I feel like I do that years in advance for people. It's like oh, somebody's dying. It's like people die. It's like I kind of saw that one coming, but yeah, as far as the thing you're talking about, it's like afterwards there will be occasional moments where I'm like, oh shit, they're gone. However, I notice this might be an NI thing, but there's some sort of like fulfilling thing, like when it came to. I mean, this may sound sad, but I think I had a closer emotional bond with my Labrador than I did my two grandparents that died. But no, it's like my Labrador. It's like I'll remember him time and time again, and I'm like, wow, he existed, and we had a relationship. That's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah,
It's a SI thing.
I was gonna say, there's like this weird awareness of like the cessation of some sort of possibility. Like a possibility has been, and that awareness of no future potential with something that did have potential is always kind of an interesting. Like that to me is the most, I guess, present kind of thought or something of
But I
importance.
think that one probably appeals to your SI in a way because it's like it's in a locked box now. It's like whatever the painting was, it's on the wall. It is what it is. You look back and you say, "This is it." The possibilities, like what's that fucking that fucking quote from one of the Game of Thrones trailers. It's like the three-eyed raven's talking, and he's like, talking about like time and fate and whatnot. He's like the ink is dry, talking about like as if you were writing something.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you
It's like an SI.
ever like cry about some like? I guess this is like an any thing, but like I'll like imagine scenarios, right, that have like yet to occur, that are either really tragic or really epic, and both of them can make me cry, oftentimes more so than an actual scenario. Do you guys
Nah.
ever experience?
No.
Sobbing, crying. I know what you mean. Though. I can get very. I've had like dreams, like that, put me like I don't know, like dreaming of like a parent's death or something, or like even I could just be sitting there imagining like, okay, what happens if like something happens with my brother? But it's never brought me to like crying, but it's brought me to like I might tear up or be like, I don't know. I know what you mean though, but it's
I'm
like
talking less about like intimate things like within your own family or friends or anything like that, that's something that is like society changing or something. It's just like some like daydream almost, right? But like imagining that scenario, like I'll be like walking sometimes, just kind of like any daydreams, right? And I imagine one of those, and I like almost start crying like while I'm walking. and
Really?
I'm yeah, like that happens to me on a regular basis actually. Um,
Yeah, no.
yeah, okay. That must just be a me thing.
It's a bit different for me, I'd say.
I can get really emotional in nature. Not crying though. Again, it's not crying. That's a cool.
He's
Like,
just,
that's another
he's
thing
just
about the
walking up
feeling.
the trees. Trees petting him, just like.
Yes.
Not animals either. I'm not an animal person either, like most people. But like, just like being in nature, like I can just look at you and be like, oh my fucking god, holy shit! Like, look at those fucking clouds,
Like,
man.
I
Look
guess
at
the kind of thing that would make me cry is like me imagining some scenario where someone makes like an ultimate like sacrifice, almost like as a martyr, in order to like create some kind of like societal change or something. Like that's like a scenario I'll imagine, and that like brings tears in my eyes when I'm just like imagining it. Like that kind of a thing, like some epic grand scale thing, but focuses on like some kind of like sacrifice or something, you know?
yeah.
That kind of thing.
I'd say like the trapped feeling is the only thing that's ever like independently made me feel that sad.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Like my
That
own
was
life, right?
always the thing. Like I would get really upset. There was a couple times I got really upset when I was a kid. It was like whatever this big scheme I had. One of them I would come to this idea that like none of it was going to happen, and that was like super depressing.
Yeah, I get that.
And that's pretty much it.
I feel like I get more sad when I feel like a sort of, I don't know, I feel like it's an NISE combo where it's like it's like I don't want to overly try to construct what it is that I'm trying to say, but it's like as far as crying goes, like I can do that with some movies. If I feel like the connection I have to the movie is visceral enough, and it's like I actually have to feel some sort of a connection, but it's like it pretty much revolves around relationships for me. I think it's like if somebody dies or somebody's like sort of in a place of despair or something, I don't know, but that's more, I think, vague when it comes to the movies or whatnot, or like as far as ideas go. But for myself, like I agree with Audra, like feeling stuck, that's like one issue.
That's I agree. That's something else that's brought me to tears, just feeling like, well, it's not just a sense of feeling stuck, but also feeling like there's a sense of like self, like it's like you're partially responsible for it, and so there's like no recourse other than to just like be really fucking like upset about it.
I do feel like when there's like important life changes going on, or like there's a major event in some way, like some sort of an occurrence, like I'll actually, like, even if it's sad, like as like someone dying or something like that, it's like I'll start projecting into the future, like this has some sort of an implication, or like this is the start of a new chapter, and like this has somewhere that it can go from here. Yeah.
Got really moist in here.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say something else too. It's like sometimes when I'm outside, or it doesn't have to be outside, it's like sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of something that reminds me. When I say catch a glimpse, it's like I'll be looking at the same shit that I'm looking at most days, but when I look at it, like, I don't know if it's like any or something, but it's like the possibilities that are there, it's like they seem happier.
Yeah.
As compared to a lot of times when I'm stuck in routine, I'm just sort of like, things are just whatever. It's just like it doesn't seem seem so hopeful. It doesn't seem so open. I feel like that there's like an any lead that occurs with my SE, to where it's like if NE decides, nah, I mean it might not be any. Like this is sort of how I have it in my head. There's like an idea based lead where it's like if things seem dim or if I don't really